What up, people? In this video we will be looking at Hades and Persephone, the king and queen of the underworld in Greek mythology, having a closer look at who they were thought to be, and looking at some of the myths associated with them. First we'll have a look at Persephone, and then Hades, while also briefly looking at other minor gods associated with the underworld. Sheesh, I'm saying look and looking a lot, but hey, what can you do? In ancient Greek mythology and religion, Persephone, also called Kora or Kore, meaning the maiden or the girl, was the daughter of Zeus and Demeter, goddess of agriculture. She became the queen of the underworld after being abducted by Hades, the god of the underworld. She was a dual deity, since she ruled the dead but, as the daughter of Demeter, was also a goddess of fertility. Interestingly, Persephone was not only considered Hades' consort or wife, but the co-ruler of the underworld, wielding considerable authority. So much so that she is reported in numerous myths as the sole maker of vital decisions related to mortals, whether it is allowing Orpheus to leave Hades with Eurydice or Heracles with Cerberus. She is also the one who lets Sisyphus go back to his wife, who agrees to the Admetus-Alcestis soul swap, and the one who grants Tiresias the privilege of retaining his intelligence in the underworld. Homer describes her as the formidable, venerable, and majestic queen of the shades, who exercises her power and carries into effect the curse of men upon the souls of the dead, along with her husband. In classical Greek art, Persephone was portrayed as an honored queen, carrying a scepter and a sheaf of wheat. When she is depicted with her mother, it is Demeter who typically carries the scepter and the sheaf, while Persephone is holding a special type of four-tipped torch, which was used in the Eleusinian mysteries. In some representations, she holds either a pomegranate or a pomegranate seed, symbolizing her marriage to Hades and the underworld. Another attribute linked to her is the cornucopia, the horn of plenty, which represents her role as goddess of fertility. In the mysteries of Leuce, the return of Kora from the underworld was regarded as the symbol of immortality, and so she was frequently represented on sarcophagi. As queen of the underworld, Persephone was feared, and therefore given many euphemistic and friendly names, such as the maiden, the mistress, the pure one, the venerable one, the great goddess, and my favorite, Juno Inferna. On top of that, she was so closely associated with her mother that the pair was often referred to as the two Demeters, or simply the two goddesses. According to the Homeric hymn to Demeter, Hades abducted Persephone after Zeus agreed that she would be his wife. In her grief of losing her daughter, Demeter refused to let plants germinate and grow, living in seclusion and refusing to join the gods on Olympus. Finally, Zeus instructed that Persephone be returned to her mother, but not willing to have her stay away from him forever, Hades promised to be a good husband to Persephone and to make her queen of the underworld. He also fed her pomegranate seeds, and so Zeus decreed that Persephone would live in the underworld for 1/3 of the year, and with her mother for the other 2/3 of the year. Rejoicing, Demeter allowed plants to grow once more, and she and Persephone returned to Olympus. I'll add a link to my video on that myth in the description below. The abduction of Persephone explains the changing of the seasons. Since Persephone had consumed pomegranate seeds in the underworld, she was forced to spend 4 months of the year with Hades. When Persephone would return to the underworld, Demeter's despair at losing her daughter would cause the plants of the world to wither, signifying the autumn and winter seasons. When Persephone's time in the underworld is over and she is reunited with her mother, Demeter's joyousness would cause plants to bloom and blossom, signifying the spring and summer seasons. This also explains why Persephone is associated with spring. Her re-emergence from the underworld signifies the onset of spring. Therefore, not only does Persephone and Demeter's annual reunion symbolize the changing seasons and the beginning of a new cycle of growth for the crops, it also symbolizes death and the regeneration of life. In another interpretation of the myth, the abduction of Persephone by Hades, in the form of Plutos, represents the wealth of the grain contained and stored in underground silos or ceramic jars, called pithoi, during the summer seasons, which was the season of drought in Greece. In this interpretation, Persephone as grain maiden symbolizes the grain within the pithoi that is trapped underground within the realm of Hades. In the beginning of the autumn, when the grain of the old crop is laid on the fields, she ascends and is reunited with her mother Demeter. This interpretation of the myth symbolizes a cycle of life and death, as Persephone both dies as she is buried in the pithoi as grain, and is reborn with the exhumation and spreading of the grain. Another myth of Persephone is associated with Aphrodite, goddess of love. Once both Aphrodite and Persephone fell in love with the same mortal, a handsome young man called Adonis. Since they couldn't agree between them who deserved him more, Zeus divided his time between the upper world and the underworld. However, Adonis loved Aphrodite more, and, when the time came, he refused to go back to Persephone's kingdom. Angered and hurt, the goddess of the underworld sent a wild boar to kill Adonis, who died in Aphrodite's arms and was transformed into the anemone flower. Finally, Persephone was thought to have had 2 children, Melinoe, a nymph responsible for bringing nightmares and madness. She was thought of as a frightful underworld goddess who presided over pacifications offered to the ghosts of the dead. At night, she wandered the earth with her train of ghosts, striking fear into the hearts of men. Her limbs were black on the one side and white on the other, a manifestation of her dual chthonic and heavenly nature. Melinoe's name means either dark-minded or propitiation-minded, from the Greek words melas, meaning black, malia, meaning propitiation, and nous, meaning mind. The word malia was often used to describe pacifying offerings made to the ghosts of the dead. It is also thought that Melinoe was probably an Orphic title for the goddess Hecate, who was also a leader of ghosts and sometimes described as the daughter of Persephone. Persephone was also the mother of Zagreus, a god closely associated with the wine god Dionysus, the underworld, and hunting. His father was Zeus, who impregnated Persephone in the form of a snake. Zeus intended to make Zagreus his heir and bestow on him unlimited power, but Hera, out of jealousy, urged the Titans to attack the child while she beguiled him with toys. The Titans, who were opposed to Zeus's power, tore Zagreus to pieces and consumed him, except for his heart. Athena managed to save the child's heart and brought it to Zeus, who swallowed it. Zeus punished the Titans for their crime by blasting them into soot with his thunderbolts. From these remains arose mortals, who were partly wicked and partly divine. Zeus then had a son with Semele, a princess of Thebes, and this child, made from the heart of Zagreus, was called Dionysus. Zagreus thus came to be identified with Dionysus in Orphic mythology, an outgrowth of the Hellenistic mystery religion based on the teachings and songs of Orpheus. According to 2 Orphic hymns, Persephone was also the mother of the Erinyes, the Furies, who punished people for crimes against the natural order. They were particularly concerned with homicide, unfilial conduct, offences against the gods, and perjury. A victim seeking justice could call down the curse of the Erinyes upon the criminal. The wrath of the Erinyes manifested itself in a number of ways. The most severe of these was the tormenting madness inflicted upon a patricide or matricide. Murderers might suffer illness or disease, and the nation harboring such a criminal could suffer death, and with it hunger and disease. The wrath of the Erinyes could only be placated with the right ritual purification and the completion of some task assigned for atonement. In Hades, the Erinyes oversaw the torture of criminals consigned to the dungeons of the damned. Now Hades, meaning the unseen, was also called Pluto or Pluton, the wealthy one, or the giver of wealth, and was the Greek god of the dead and king of the underworld. He was the son of the Titans Kronos and Rhea, and brother of Zeus, Poseidon, Demeter, Hera, and Hestia. After Kronos was overthrown by his sons, his kingdom was divided among them, and the underworld fell by lot to Hades, while Poseidon was given the sea and Zeus the sky. There he ruled with his queen Persephone over the infernal powers and over the dead in what was often called the House of Hades, or simply Hades. He was aided by Cerberus, the three-headed guard dog of the underworld. Though Hades supervised the trial and punishment of the wicked after death, he was not normally one of the judges in the underworld, nor did he personally torture the guilty, a task which was assigned to the Furies. Hades was depicted as stern and pitiless, unmoved by prayer or sacrifice, just like death itself. Forbidding and aloof, he never quite emerged as a distinct personality from the shadowy darkness of his realm. The god of the underworld was usually worshipped under euphemistic names such as the Renowned or Good Counselor. Perhaps from fear of pronouncing his name, the Greeks started referring to Hades as Pluton, around the 5th century BCE, with the root meaning wealthy, considering that from the soil comes riches in the form of fertile crops and metals. Pluton became the Roman god who both ruled the underworld and distributed riches from below. This deity was a mixture of the Greek god Hades and the Eleusinian icon Plutos, and from this he also received a priestess, which was not previously practiced in Greece. By those avoiding his actual name, he was also referred to as Zeus Katachtonios, meaning the Zeus of the underworld, or the infernal Zeus, seeing as he had complete control over the underworld. As ruler of the dead, Hades was a grim and ghastly figure, inspiring awe and terror in everybody. Consequently, he was rarely depicted in art. When he was, though, he was most commonly portrayed with a beard and a solemn, mournful look. He frequently wears a helmet, named the Helm of Darkness or the Cap of Invisibility, which was given to him as a present from the Cyclopes after their delivery from Tartarus. Cerberus, the three-headed dog which guarded the entrance to the underworld, is usually beside him. Ever so often he carries a scepter or holds the key to his kingdom. At a later stage, he became associated with his weapon of choice, the bident, a two-pronged fork modelled after Poseidon's trident. While as Pluton, he was sometimes shown with a cornucopia, the horn of plenty. According to the Suda, a large 10th century Byzantine encyclopedia of the ancient Mediterranean world, Hades had a daughter by the name of Macaria, who personified a blessed death. She was perhaps a more merciful counterpart of the god of death Thanatos, and was connected with the passage of souls to the islands of the blessed. Apart from Persephone, Hades also loved others. One of these lovers was a nymph called Minthe, but Persephone murdered her and turned her into the garden mint plant, while other versions say that she was Hades' lover before he married Persephone. Jealous of Persephone, Minthe complained loudly, causing Demeter to murder her out of anger, for the nymph had claimed that she was nobler of form and more excellent in beauty than the dark-eyed Persephone, and she boasted that Hades would return to her and banish Persephone from his halls. The other lover of Hades was Leuce, also a nymph and a daughter of Oceanus, the river that flowed around the earth. Similar to Persephone, Leuce was carried off to the underworld by Hades. She lived out the span of her life in his realm, and when she died, Hades turned her into a white poplar, which was a tree sacred to him, and planted it in the Elysian fields. As always, thank you very much for watching. If there are any gods you would like me to feature on this channel, please leave a comment below. In the meantime, please like, share and subscribe. Bye bye.